Hello friends, welcome. And in this video, we'll be discussing the behavioral model of psychopathology. Let us start with a brief definition of psychopathology. The science that studies and diagnoses the psychological disorders. This is a very brief and the smallest definition, but remember, most appropriate one. What is the central theme or the base on which the behavioral model stands? Dear friends, the central theme of behavioral model is learning. This model suggests that the abnormal or the maladaptive behavior is the consequence or the outcome of faulty learning. We'll be focusing upon the development of behaviorism as a new school of thought. Ivan Pavlov, the Russian physiologist, he proposed a new concept popularly known as the classical conditioning. I'm not going to explain what classical conditioning is. Then comes the J.B. Watson expanded this model, expanded this school of thought by doing a very popular experiment known as the Little Albert experiment. Later came the L Thorndike, who buttressed this idea of behaviorism through the famous cat experiment. Remember, the fish was kept outside the cage where the cat was enclosed. No, I'm not going to give details of these experiments because this is beyond the scope of this video. Okay, then the behaviorism got its major thrust from the B.F. Skinner, who propounded a new theory, popularly known as the operant conditioning or the instrumental conditioning, the rat pressing the lever. These watershed events, though these were the watershed events, along with that, they proposed the new discovered facts which led to the pathological issues in the organism. Ivan Pavlov, in his classical conditioning, he suggested the development of experimental neurosis in the dogs. And on the basis of his findings, he suggested that the life stresses are the major events that induce the experimental neurosis in human beings, because the response to that life stresses are unique one, and that lead to the development of certain kind of neurosis. He described it as of two types: artistic type and thinking type. In artistic type, it's an intensive, vivid and highly responsive to the external stimulation. The people who suffers from the experimental neurosis and who are kind of artistic type, they are very much sensitive to the external stimulations. Such people are prone to be hysterical or the manic depressive disorders. Then the thinking type. What are the thinking type? Thinking type people are the individual who are more or less equivalent to the introvert type. They remain in themselves. They do not have a large lobby of friends. They have their own space and love to respond to the verbal stimuli. But they are prone to OCD and schizophrenic reaction. Similarly, J.B. Watson, through his Little Albert experiment, demonstrated objectively a phenomenon, the generalization of irrational fear. He started with the assumption that if psychology were to ever to become a science, it must limit itself to the study of events that could be observed objectively. Means the psychologist should be limited to the events which can be observed or tested with the experimental designs. To support this assumption, he conducted the little Albert experiment, and through that experiment he demonstrated that the generalization of irrational fear can occur and also contribute in development of other abnormalities in human behavior. Then comes the Mary Cover-Jones. She demonstrated exactly opposite what J.B. Watson done with the little Albert. That is the removal of irrational fear. She was instrumental in demonstrating that the irrational fear can be removed objectively. L Thorndike, through the law of effect, he demonstrated that the reward and punishment are the significant contributors in the learning and behavior modification. That means the reward and punishment also plays a significant role in regulating the human behavior. And then came the radical behaviorist. Professor Skinner was known with this nickname. He suggested that the stimulus is the most potent behavioral modification tool. Through various experiments, he proved that the behavior can be modified using the various kind of stimuli. This means stimuli is a very important tool that regulates, control and manage the behavior of the organism. Now let us focus on some of the important concepts propounded by the behaviorist that have a very important, or rather you call it as a significant role in the psychopathology. Generalization, it's a very important idea where the experiences are instrumental in dealing with the new situations. But there are high chances of making inappropriate generalizations which may lead to the irrational notions. Such as there is a saying in Hindi, दूध का जला भी छाछ को फूंक फूंक कर पीता है. So that is the basic idea where the generalization has been occurred. The past experiences has led to the change in the behavior towards the different kind of stimuli. Then comes the discrimination. The ability to differentiate between the stimuli is a very important strategy for survival. It's a very interesting and surviving strategy to differentiate between poisonous and the non-poisonous snakes. The failure to discriminate between the stimuli may lead to the psychological disorganization and may interfere with the coping strategies. And you will be surprised to know that adolescents like you are more prone to this problem because they regularly and more often fails to discriminate between the responsible and irresponsible behavior. And we have seen nowadays these adolescents make the irresponsible behavior by taking the risky, rather I say life risky selfies, and they suffer the fate too. Then the modeling, shaping and learned drives. So what is modeling? Observing others' behaviors and imitating that. Remember, A child living in a maladaptive behavior settings or the family where discord, fighting, and violence is common, such children learn by observation because the parents are the role model for the child, and that finally leads to development of psychological disorganization and the various kind of abnormalities. So role models are very important. Then came the shaping. Shaping means giving shape to a desired behavior by successive approximation. Means you can shape the behavior by exposing to stimuli through successive approximation technique. If unacceptable behavior is rewarded or shaped or reinforced, that may later lead to the development of abnormality. Then the learned drives. The learned drives are the extension of primary motives. And these primary motives helps in gratification. Therefore, they are learned and applied in day-to-day settings. The faulty learning of the drives or the motives through various means may lead to the development of psychological disorders. Now, if we want to conclude the behavioristic model, so what we can say in a nutshell, the failure to learn necessary required adaptive behaviors may lead to the development of abnormal behavior or the abnormality. Learning inappropriate responses can lead to abnormality or the abnormal behaviors. Organism or the human being face lots of problems, lots of challenges, lots of stresses which they cannot control. Means the situations are beyond their control. So learning from such situations may lead to development of abnormality, which Ivan Pavlov termed as the experimental neurosis. Then learning from the faulty role models, learning by observation. And it's a very pity to know that nowadays the role models has been shifted to Bollywood, where they wear inappropriate clothes, regularly found to involve in drug abuse, commonly known as Nashedi, and our young generation takes them as a role model. And you can see the result in the society. The number of divorces is increasing, the rape cases, the crime is increasing, and I am sure that this is due to the faulty role models of Bollywood. Parents, the teachers, administrators, kindly look into it. Learning by observing or experiencing a traumatic event, just as a terrorist attack, which a people from a particular community are terrorizing the world. The terrorist attack leaves several psychological scars, that is leading to inappropriate and abnormal behavior by the person who was victim to that terrorist attack or who observed that terrorist attack. Let us unite to fight terrorism. And finally, behavior shaping by the reinforcement for the wrong reasons. You'll find the suicide bombers, their behavior is shaped by the terrorist using the various techniques. Their brain is washed completely and they have been trained to kill people by killing themselves. Educate your child to stay away from these negative and debilitating events. If you want to study the behavioral model of psychopathology in deep, you can refer these references. And friends, if you like the contents and the presentation style of this video, tell to others. But if any question, any query, or any critical comment to make, just you can post on the social media handles, or you can write directly in my comment box, or you can email me at vermasujit@yahoo.com. And do not forget to watch the next discussion on the cognitive model of psychopathology. Thank you friends for watching.